2003. As an event for young designers to network and show their work in public, it has become a global celebration, featuring a special presentation for my 20 images, each for 20 seconds. Moving on while you speak alone. Do not sign for more and fun gatherings. Rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult. Presenting something that you like. Ideas, what thoughts about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together, let's say 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh, 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 eh.
PechaKucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
PechaKucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, PechaKucha is like it's made in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for the sound of talking. This is PechaKucha. Thank you, Astridema, for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always sung in your place, eating and drinking space. Bar, resto, gallery, home beach or swimming pool. Serena, relax way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are PechaKucha, all over the world, a real network. We are PechaKucha, with wonderful stories at the Pecha Nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
PechaKucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is BU here, your city organizer. We are all calling from Penang and different countries, different cities in the world. Welcome again. This is volume 14, PechaKucha Night Penang, where we celebrate the art of fast presentation, 20 images for 20 seconds each. Today, we are privileged to have an amazing lineup where we will present and I'll introduce after this. And we are also very privileged to have support from our friends from Singapore, Singapore Archifest 2021. I think everyone should just say hi in the chat box and just tell us where you're calling in from. And I can't do this alone. We want to welcome Brian, our co-host for the evening. Brian, come on stage.
Hi, B.
Brian's calling all the way from Tokyo, guys.
Hi, thank you for having me, B. I'm so happy to be here. How are you?
Good. It's raining heavily now in Penang.
Oh, it was a beautiful day. It's Saturday. Well, you know, I had somebody message me early this morning from my office from PechaKucha, still stuck in Friday. I said, ha, suckers, I'm on Saturday morning. You guys are left in Friday. So it's been a nice day. Since that happened this morning, I've been having a nice Saturday all day long. Yeah.
Great. So would you like to introduce to our audience for some who have not heard of PechaKucha?
I'd love to. Thank you, B. I'm going to, I didn't advance the slides here. Let's see here. There's you.
Okay.
And we've already got a hiccup. There's me. B, I thank you for choosing this furry picture of me with my big camera
you
here.
always look like a rock star there.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I came to PechaKucha by way of photography, and then I joined the team, and so now I have the great privilege to look over our global network and also continue my passion for photography. So I'm going to give everybody a little context of what we're up to.
Yes.
PechaKucha is the sound of chit chat in Japanese. We might say blah, 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 or PechaKucha, PechaKucha, PechaKucha. And it's the 20 images that are automatically advanced every 20-second presentation, show and tell presentation format that started here in Tokyo almost 18 years ago and has spread all around the world. And these are the luminary people who started PechaKucha. This is Astrid Klein, Hisayama, and Mark Ditham here. They're architects here in Tokyo. They started their architecture practice about 30 years ago here in Japan. This is one of their projects in Ginza, the Ginza Place building. This is on the corner of one of the most prominent corners in Tokyo. And it was during their early days here in Tokyo when they created this format as a way to quickly share architectural projects that were in the office, because as you all know, as architects, they tend to go on quite a long time about the tiniest details of a design. And so this was a way to keep them on track and moving the conversation along so we could hear from lots of different creative ideas. And that was, like I said, 18 years ago. It spread to an amazing 1,271 cities. Penang is one of our cities. B, do you remember what number you were, by the way? Any chance you remember?
No, that was before 1,000, I think. Okay. 2017. We've been doing this since 2017.
Well, I'll tell you, B, since the last event that we hosted together, 36 new cities came since our last time here together, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So if you want to, you can always check the PechaKucha calendar. There might be an event happening near you. If you want to run PechaKucha in your city, reach out to us and we can help make that happen for you. So we have a website. It's at PechaKucha.com. Usually, or up until recently, the only way that you could give a PechaKucha presentation was to be invited to a PechaKucha night. But we've recently launched this new website and a new online tool where you can actually make PechaKucha presentations on our website. So you basically just go to the website and upload your 20 slides and voice them. And that's been particularly great during this quarantine and pandemic, because we've all been looking for things to do. And it's been a great way for us to share our creativity from our desks at home. And that's exactly what we've done. We've kind of become digital producers, and all of our cities around the world have learned how to do these events online. This is an event that was one of our first online events. And we've done 500 in this year alone. And I'm guessing that it's probably close to 1,000 since the pandemic started. So as I said, you basically can just go to our website, click on the PK Create button. You can write a title and description. You can upload and rearrange your images as you like. You press record the audio, and then it publishes it on the PechaKucha website, which you can share on your website or on your social, and share your passion with the world. So we're always collaborating with cool people. Last year we've done 3 or 4 events together with you. We're so happy to be part of the Archifest, the Architectural Festival this year, and happy World Architecture Day to everybody. And right now, starting tomorrow, tomorrow is is the COP26 UN Global Climate Summit in Glasgow, and we've got an event happening there. We've got Mark Ditham, the PK founder, on his way there. We've got an event coming up on November 10th with UNESCO about water security in Latin America, which is going to be really interesting. We've got on the horizon, we're going to work with Frank Lloyd Wright Conservancy again for the 4th collaboration later in the year, another architecture-centered event. We'll have our International PK Day in February, and there's a lot going on. And before I kind of hand it back to you, B, I did share about how much PK Global community and how much PK Tokyo loves BU. And I just want to say this was her. She's in here somewhere in the crowd. There she is, Penang. I see her.
Yeah.
And she's come and visited our PechaKucha Night Tokyo series and been part of our global organizer meetup. And last time we talked about, she came and represented Penang so well, and we shared all about that. B, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but I have to. And for this particular spotlight on you, B, I just wanted to say she was part of our Inspire the World initiative, which was the first initiative to get these online events going. She put together an all-star lineup for that. You might see some familiar faces in there. And then when we had International PK Day, she brought out the aces again for that one, curated a killer lineup for her hour. We had a 24-hour long event that went all the way around the world. It was exhausting, but a blast. And the Penang hour was especially great. And just a few months ago, B, you're gonna have to remind me when it was, but just a few months ago, we had another fantastic event with another amazing lineup of presenters. And I want to welcome back everybody who saw any of those events, and just say how awesome that B is part of this great community. She's one of all of our organizers are special and unique, and B is especially so. And there they all are beating their hearts. And PK, last time we loved you, B, but this time we just want to say thank you because you guys can get a sense like being an organizer of these chapters is a labor of love, and you can see how much effort B has put into all of these events, and continually cultivating creativity and creative passion in Penang and Southeast Asia and Singapore and beyond. So thank you so much, B. We're so happy to have you as part of our community and happy to be part of this event.
Thank you.
And I'm going to stop talking there. Okay, I probably went on longer than 20 seconds. So
it's always great to see you on stage, Brian. I'm always surprised. You always surprise me with those new shots. I didn't know you're going to do the flashback. I was trying to keep track. I just know this is number 14. And yes, we've done 3 times after a pandemic came in 2020. So there you go. We are back again.
B, you're awesome. You always do a bang up job on this. Keep at it, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's my Saturday hobby job. It's not my day job. So, it's a special edition today because World Architecture Day happens in the first week of October. So we always align in October. And incidentally, we are glad that Singapore ArchiFest is happening at the same time, and that's why we decided to collaborate. So without further ado, let's invite all our presenters to come on stage. We've got these amazing all-stars architects. There you go, Razvan from Singapore. Razvan will be our guest moderator. Serena, Renee, and Ken. Hello, Ken.
Hello, here I am.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Impressive line of bookcase.
Good
evening.
Cheers.
Okay,
we got through the introduction.
Cheers. Wow, Zoom is really good at blocking drinks. It's only coffee. Come on, guys, work with me.
All right, so this is first time for everyone using PechaKucha format, right? So good luck to everyone. We're going to talk to each and every one of you after this, and we decided like ladies first. So Serena will be our first presenter of the evening. So we will catch up with the rest of the gentlemen. Thank you for agreeing to let ladies speak first. Very kind of you, Renee and Ken. So probably allow me to introduce a little bit about SERINA HIJJAS. Of course, everyone knows you actually, but I just have to say this. Serena, I think, is an amazing icon in Malaysian architecture for young. I consider myself young. For young practitioners like me and a lot of my friends, you've been our source of inspiration for women in architecture. Serena has up to 20 years of experience in architectural planning and design. She graduated from Bartlett School of Architecture and University of Sydney, a really luminary name in Malaysian architecture. Without further ado, I really thank you again, Serena, for agreeing to do this. Over to you, Serena.
Okay, give me a breather for a minute because I know why.
What do you think? What do you think of doing this? I mean, I'm so glad you say yes.
I think it was just, okay, let's jump in and try it. And I didn't realize it was 20 seconds for 20 slides until you sent me the brief. But I know why now Ken and Renee said Serena goes first, because, let her fumble. And then the rest of it actually a bit more. I'm the warm-up session.
But I really thought ladies first is quite a nice touch. And I'm glad that you are in white. So, white seems to blend well with the blue background today.
Thank you. Just make me look a little bit younger, as Ken said. I'm 17. All right. Okay, I'm about ready to start. Thank you. And go. Yep. When we first started on this journey on Expo, I remember Tony Stark looking down at the scene and Stark Expo, and he says, the key to the future is where? And so I think that's the thing about Expos. And I'm just going to present to you our scheme for Expo, because I think it raises a couple of questions and ideas. And the Paris Sphere here at the 1939 New York World's Fair, inside the Paris Sphere, was a diorama of the futuristic utopian city named Democracy. So I thought that was also quite interesting. Today's Expo, Al-Wasi, also has a dome, although it's not a sphere. But I think the thing about building something like this brings a couple of questions. We can build and think about impermanence and build to move. I think that's what inspired us for our first Expo. We've been quite fortunate to be involved in 2 Expos, and we brought 2 different ideas, but maybe there's something similar here. For the first Expo in about 2015, the idea of seeds feeding the planet was the theme. And we literally built seeds, buildings that look like seeds. And that's the first breakaway from this traditional idea of the Minangkabau pavilion representing Malaysia. But more than that, this idea was basically that you can assemble, disassemble, take it home later and reassemble it back in Malaysia. Of course, we didn't end up doing that because the cost of construction was relatively so low that to take it back would cost us much more to do that. But that whole idea was an idea of basically sustainability and an idea of impermanence. And also an idea not to waste things. So, here we see about 3,000 components to put together the joints of the glue lamp. And it's the first time we were actually building in glue lamp. So I think the journey in talking about timber is a journey that we should continue to talk about. These are some of the Expo pavilions at Expo 2020, 2021. It got delayed because of the Expo. And there were a lot of ideas put out there. I'd like to think that they all represent something about the future that we're talking about. And this is the Malaysian pavilion. The topic that I'm talking about is touching the ground lightly. And our pavilion was about lowering our footprint. In fact, it's the first net zero carbon pavilion in the whole of Expo. And I think for being the smallest pavilion in Expo, I think this was a great feat. Our concept was in the canopy of trees and in the rainforest. So the idea was that we lift it all up on stilts. And building on stilts is nothing new. It's a traditional idea that most of us sort of think about when they think about Malaysia. And these are some examples of that. But I think modernizing it and contemporizing it is certainly something that we can take away from this. But building on stilts was a likeness of being. We actually built the whole pavilion out of PFC timber, sustainable timber, both the facade and inside. And one of the big questions we were talking about really is how big is our environmental footprint? How big is our ecological footprint? How big is our carbon footprint? These are, of course, all the questions that I think is coming right up to the front at this stage and where we are now. We're all having to measure. And I would say that this is the first building that we've actually measured in Malaysia with regards to embodied carbon. And why is it important? It's such a small pavilion that you see here, and yet the operational carbon is relatively small because we managed to reduce the energy, but the embodied carbon was still at a high level of 1291 CO2s, even though we were using timber. So it's a very, very lightweight structure. And the idea of this is that once we're finished with this, the entire site is basically dismantled and we leave it as we found it. So I think this idea, again, I'm going to talk about impermanence. Impermanence as the way of the future. I don't think that we used to build buildings for permanence. You know, we like a building that will last for 100 years, 200 years, 50 years, 30 years. But I think for the future, we're going to be building things out of timber. Some of the images you see at the top there were the inspirations. We obviously, Malaysia had to address reforestation. It's a big thing about, you know, what is Malaysia doing? We had to talk about sustainable plantation, but we also wanted to have fun with this pavilion. And you can see the entire building is basically floor, walls is all made out of timber. Just a few in terms of steel structures to support. We call them chopsticks columns to stick them out. But I show this image of the American spangle stars. That's because Elon Musk obviously is making studies and targets 2026 as the year that we will go to Mars. And I've had a bit of a problem with this idea of us spending so much money for Mars when we could actually be looking at spending that kind of money about how we can make materials to build and resources and waste that would basically be more considered. And I think the future for building will be building in permanence with timber, if we can actually basically get the cycles of timber within the 5-year cycles. And I think that's far more resourceful and the only way for us to survive in the next, in the next decade or so. So here you see that Malaysia started on 3 million trees, something called Relief. And that is to basically start a reforestation of more than 3 million trees. At the moment, we're doing restoration. We're not actually doing so much reforestation. And this is something that is dear to my heart with regards to where we're going in terms of protecting our environment. And that leads on to ecological and all the rest of it, obviously. But I think this was a big topic that we wanted to also address with this pavilion. So concepts of what we want to show of our country is really, really important. I think we've kind of stuck onto this one slide. We haven't kind of moved to the next.
Yeah.
The last one and the last 2 slides, I guess, is a slide that shows going back to ground zero. The thing about expos is that we have to leave the ground as we found it. We have to leave it as a desert. And I think we missed one last slide, which is a slide that shows a painting by Ibrahim Hussein. This is a slide going back to ground zero. This is the day we started in 2019. And Expo says you must return it the way you found it. And 75% of all the building materials will go back and be upcycled. I'm showing this picture because I find the pursuit of Mars a little bit of an issue because by the time we get to Mars, just like this astronaut here, we'll be thinking about our own planet. And I think it's far more worthy for us to spend that kind of money in terms of building up our resources and our food security and resilience. Thanks, that's me.
That was really calm and composed, Serena. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, if you think that they sent you as a canary in a coal mine, oh wow, they have something to live up to now.
Well, you definitely look like you practice. I don't know, or you're a natural talent when speaking on stage.
Renee, not true. I was up till 3 o'clock this morning, finishing off bloody slides.
I was just amazed. I was like, she is super ultra cool about it. Yeah. And a very comfortable pace. And you knew when the 20 seconds gonna change. And of course that last hiccup on that last 2 slides, Brian is
It was do you I messaged you earlier today that said, are any of
Things
the
happen.
slides video slides? And it was regarding that particular issue. So it comes with the territory, but you rolled with it like better than I've ever seen. Super pro. So thank you so much. And I'm so sorry about that. And don't worry, we'll there's some tricks of the trade that we can take care
It's
of.
okay. I'm the warm up for the next two.
Yeah, but I think you set the benchmark really
You're the
high,
golden benchmark.
Serena.
Yeah, seriously. Kept you cool.
Cheers. Thanks.
You are the rock star. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my applause. Thank you so much, Serena. How do you feel now?
Oh, I'm done. I'm gone. Bye.
Stick around,
Please
Serena.
stay on. Please stay on. Razwan
I
has
know.
many things to talk
We
about
have
after this.
questions to ask.
Oh,
That
dear.
was amazing. Oh, so many more thoughts come to mind now.
All right. So, we are all about short and sweet, fast-paced presentation. Keep up with all our short attention span, keep on changing the new focus. So thank you, Serena. We are moving on to our second presenter of the evening, Dr. Ken Young. He's going to speak about 50 years in 20 slides. Allow me to just introduce for young students, but I'm sure everyone knows Ken Young, but I have to do this, my job. Ken is an architect and ecologist. Ken trained at AA, Architectural Association School. He obtained his doctorate from Cambridge University, author of many amazing, inspiring books on green architecture, many of the books that was with me throughout my varsity years. Award winner, multiple award winners. Ken was named by Guardian newspaper one of the 50 people who could save the planet. There you go. Over to you. Dr.
Okay.
Ken Young, welcome to PechaKucha Penang.
Thanks, Miyu. Well, it's wonderful to be here. It's especially on a Saturday evening. We can start now if you wish.
All right.
Well, living started with this house, which is back in 1985. I started business actually in 1976, but this house was enigmatic for me because it was one of my early works. And then these were a series of canopy architecture buildings that came after that. This is a proposal for design for a station in China next. Well, okay, this is in Xiong'an, which is the capital city, next capital city of Beijing. Then our most recent one is this one, which is a data center. And this time we put photovoltaics on the roof. For those who work with photovoltaics, for it to work, you need to have at least 50 to 60% of your GFA in order to be energy efficient. This is a much smaller project. This is a guardhouse in Kuala Lumpur, near the KLCC area. And this is another one of my favorite. It is one of the cheapest projects we've done. It's about 200,000 and it's one of my favorites. Yes, then all our work start with defining the green infrastructure. This is our master plan for university in Mangalore in India, and so this was we just finished this, and then we did a master plan for a larger site in the Reunion Island, which is east of Madagascar, and it's the French territory, and we did it with a French architect, and the whole idea was to bring ecosystem services next to the urban areas. This is the data center we did for DG, and this is where the eco-infrastructure then became a wraparound structure that went around the whole building and went back to where it started. This is in Petaling Jaya for DG. And this is a more recent project, which is 2 million square feet project in Dhaka. And it's a fun project because it weaves around the site and it was a great project to design with my team. Then another green infrastructure project is the one in the Solaris in Singapore. And this one has a green, the infrastructure in this project is a ramp that weaves its way around the building, starting from the eco cell, the ground floor, goes to the ground floor, out to the mid-level roof garden, and finally to the uppermost roof. And this is another one. This is our most recent project, which is in Putrajaya. It's about, about 1.3 million square feet and has sky courts and again, a green infrastructure leading up to the third floor. This building was actually one of my favorites. And of course, in Singapore, we did the National Library, which had huge sky courts. And this was back in 1999, I think it was completed soon after that, in around 2008, I think. And this was a fun project. We won this in a competition. This is a building next to the palm oil factory. This time the green infrastructure is actually inside the building, but it climbs all the way up from the ground floor up to the roof. You can see on the left-hand side as it stepped up, we exposed the green infrastructure going all the way up to the roof. And this is another building. We did a competition for the University of Malaya, which we got the first prize. And in the same project, like the Putrajaya one, we used fitted glass as a sun alternative to the conventional sun shading, and we use it as a canopy over the university hub. This is the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital extension that we completed in 2010. But this time we used mixed mode, and so we had a glass flue that extends from the ground floor to the uppermost floor. A mixed mode glass flue can only work in a temperate and cold climate. It cannot work in Malaysia. And of course, an earlier building is the Menara Baus, in which we put, plants on the facade. But this was one of the early experiments in 1986, but it's still one of my favorites. And from this led on to other sort of green projects. And of course, the Menara Masiniaga, which was finished in 1992. And this had a series of step sky courts that step all the way up the buildings. Early experiment in the step sky courts. And so we used this idea which brought the planting all the way up to the top of the building. And this creates what are called interstitial transitional spaces. And of course, this was the IBM building, which we did for Dr. Dr. Smile. And this here we had the step eco infrastructure, a series of planters going from one side down to the other side, crosses the mid-level and then goes up again on the other side to the roof garden. And then a more recent project, which is the extension to the same building. This time we use a trellis as a step planter going from the ground, going up to the top. And this is, this was the extension to the earlier IBM building, which is now Plaza Beds. Then, all our work is actually research-based, and we put it all together into books. And these are some of the books I've authored. And the latest one's called At One with Nature. And then the one at the far right is called Saving the Planet by Design. It's a theory book, and that was published in 2020. And this is my best project, which is my family and my sister. And I'm so glad it's been, I've been married for nearly 36 years, and family is still talking to me, and that's very important.
All right, thank you, Ken. That was really well spot time on. I guess you really don't need any practice there, Ken. Well done, Ken.
Oh, thank you.
Very well.
I think. Was it difficult for you because you spoke at at conference and seminars, and I feel so bad that we only give you 6 minutes 40 seconds.
That's not enough. It was a walk in the park. Actually, it was a fun thing to do.
Did you enjoy the format, Ken?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea to have to have 20 slides, and I said, what could I do? I just tell the story of what I've done for the last 50 years. I've been in business since 1976, so it's nearly 45 years. So I call it 50 years of practice. And Serena was asking me about being practiced. It hasn't been easy. It's been a real rite of passage.
Yeah. Was it difficult trying to decide? I'm sure in 50 years you have, thousands of photos to choose from. Was it difficult to choose 20 photos, 20 images?
No, it was any, mini, miny, mo, that sort of thing. So it wasn't.
And you somehow landed on so many amazing ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it tells the story what we've been doing, from the canopy building to the veggie buildings, to the green infrastructure, and to energy, which is the last canopy building where we put photovoltaics. And it had to stick up from the building because that's the only way we can reach 60% of GFA to be energy independent, and so from the photovoltaics. So that was an interesting experiment. And of course, the other aspects to it, such as recycling of water and things like that. So.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, because we are this crazy challenge of 20 images, 20 seconds. You are inspiration to everyone. I was in second year when you visited USM as our external panel. I'm sure you don't remember me, but
that was my twin brother. My twin brother's serious architect. I'm the one who gives him a bad name. I go karaoke, fooling around, So what you met was my.
I wasn't born when you opened your office. No, I'm kidding.
I know, really salute to you, Ken. 50 years, I can't imagine. I'm really doing this like 19 years. I can't imagine another 30 years to go. But we will come back to you and chat on what's your secrets of still going strong in architecture. Thank you so much, Ken. Well done.
Yeah.
Stay with us. Don't leave yet, Ken. We will come round with everyone for a chit chat at the end. So. Time flies when we're having fun. Right now we are down to our final presenter of the evening. Renee Tan is again a very good spot. I've called him and he said yes immediately. So really honored to have you here, calling in from Singapore. Allow me to just introduce Renee to our audience in Penang. Renee is actually Penangite, born in Penang, received his Bachelor of Architecture from Yale University, Master of Architecture from Princeton, currently a director at RT&Q Architects in Singapore. Now, Renee is very famous in Singapore as well. He was Designer of the Year 2016 for President's Design Awards in Singapore. So I'm very humbled to have you as our guest today. Renee, over to you. Welcome to PechaKucha.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Very honored and humbled to be here to share some ideas over 20 images. This is the second time I'm doing it. First time was actually live during the World Architecture Festival in Singapore. So I had been looking forward to this occasion and saying hi to old friends and of course meeting new ones as well. Yeah, I thought the last thing I would like to talk about tonight is architecture and architecture again. And don't think like an architect is the sort of thing that we remind each other in the office every day. And this slide is good because it's the mainstay of the office, to really stay away from the desk and go out and see the world. And these days we have been lucky to be able to do a range of buildings, scales. We do buildings for the living, we do buildings for animals, we do buildings for the dead as well lately. And it has actually opened up a new kind of thinking for us moving ahead. 3 reminders: don't think like an architect. In this case on the left, think like a gambler, shoe cabinet. If it stops at Nike, wear Nike. Just when you think that a gate should be solid and impenetrable, make it soft with plants. And my favorite is a reminder, never be afraid to put the right thing at the wrong place or vice versa. For instance, in this gallery, instead of putting artwork in it, we told the owner, that we should put the wrong thing, namely bridges, into this gallery of a space. And it has been artless for a long time, this space. Another example of putting the right thing in the wrong place. This is a kitchen, and we put the most unsanitary-like thing, a laundry chute, in this space, and even gave it a cathedral-like ceiling, just to make the space a little bit more unrecognizable and a little bit different. This thing, we had to drill an oculus, a light well, about 5 levels through the house to bring light in. This one, we had to put the right thing at the right place, otherwise we would have been fired. So we finished the job, and I think the owner is quite happy with the light that this has brought. Now this is again making something out of nothing. It's really a double-story closet. It's a storage of sorts, but we tried to make it different, try to give it some sense of place and some poetic presence. Now, not thinking like an architect has actually landed us a few interesting jobs. In the last few years, we had an opportunity to do a bus stop, an ecological bus stop in Singapore. And we tried all sorts of things. And it was a very tough job because we had to work with many departments to try to pull this off. And I knew at some point that this group slide at the Villa Savoy would come in handy. We were asked to do an opera stage set. It was the first time we were doing it. And it was a fun project. And it really allowed us to think beyond what we normally would do as a group. And my favorite project lately, a tombstone for a client who just lost his mother. We had fun. We made a meal out of the project. We even brought the office, including Lillian Tay, a good friend, to Carrara to search for the right stone, just like Michelangelo would have done some years back, 500 years back. Now, because of COVID, last year, we were hit by the pandemic, and there was a 56-day circuit breaker where we could just must stay in. I told myself we should make this an interesting period. So I told myself I'll do a sketch every one of the 56 days. It was kind of an encouragement of sorts, a reminder to the office to remember to use their hands and to sketch, because the next pandemic, I told them, may not be a biological one, but instead a cyber one where there would be a meltdown and everyone would have no computers to go to, but to use their hands. The idea was to improve things that were stuck in the ground. We took another look at the bathrooms, closets, what have you. And in order to really do something new and make a good use of the time that we had sitting around at home. For instance, here there was an opportunity to unthink and rethink what a shoe closet would be like. And in the end, it ended up a shoe sacristy for one of the houses that we had done. And of course, the issue of what a post-pandemic world, the new normal would be like, some thinking about transformer-like cabinetry, how architecture could move, could be flexible, could be transformative, and could adapt to a series of different usage. Well, the newspapers approached some of us for some ideas, and I told them I won't only just talk, we would do a sketch. And this was some idea about how workers' housing could be like. My suspicion was that it was not a planned thing, but a sectional thing with staggered bunk beds and good ventilation. The other thing that COVID actually encouraged me to do personally was to come out of a 40-year hiatus of painting. The idea was that I would do a painting for every job we do, and in the end, to give the owner a painting from the architect as a gift. You would normally comprise elements of the houses, the projects that we would do. They would recognize elements like staircases and trees and swimming pools. And of course, the recurring bottle of wine is a symbol of good life that architecture, I guess, is meant always to pursue. So that has also affected my own personal thinking about design. perhaps one could say we have started thinking about things in a more painterly way and really stop thinking like an architect. These are some jobs that are ongoing. And again, it has, I think, affected the way I have at least personally approached thinking about architecture and space and things that we would try to deliver to clients. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
That was a smile-inducing presentation.
I made a mental note, must give painting to client.
Yeah.
Is that your secret, Renee?
Well, we thought that usually the people would ask us in the end how to decorate the homes. And I thought perhaps we really should do something and contribute something meaningful rather than bringing clients to galleries and having them spend a lot of money on paintings that are rather meaningless to them. So we thought that this was a little the least we could do as the architect, trying to think not like an architect and doing things for them.
To get a Renee Tan painting, do you have to commission a Renee Tan house?
Yeah,
yeah, buy one, free one in Penang. You know, is it how
Any
it
lobang
works?
for the locals?
I'll take a sketch. That's fine with me.
You know, I used to work for Serena's father, and we were talking about green architecture, and it says, 2 coats of green paint. That's why lot 10 is, is done by, Renee's, Serena's father's green color.
It's still looking good, I remember.
Yeah, it's a nice building.
He has done, guys, 60 to 80 paintings in these 2 years working from home.
Wow.
Yeah, he's going to do an art show. He says, I'm a painter now. My mother's like, really?
Amazing. Renee, if you do this in Penang, if you remember your Hokkien, then you'll be like, oh, spoil market.
We don't have all the answers. We are always asking questions, and it's COVID has actually made us think a little bit and think about things beyond what we do day to day in the architecture office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really a nice touch, and it's an eye opener that we think that we architects are doing so much, but there you see Renee is giving painting on completion of work on top of the work.
We try.
Added value. That's why he's getting the big jobs.
I know. So I'm making notes.
His studio is lovely. I had the chance to visit, and I don't think it's because of the wine, but I really did enjoy his amazing studio and then the paintings in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Renee, was it difficult doing this virtual? It seems pretty relaxed for you.
It's I think I was rather relaxed only because you guys have set it up very well, and the rhythm was, I think, quite comfortable. And I think it's a fantastic idea to limit the verbosity of presentations in whatever field it could be. So it was a very welcome thing, and I'm very honored to be here just sharing some slides with everyone. Yeah.
But I know, Renee, you can speak for hours. So, when things are better, come back to Penang, and then we'll have another lecture for you with my students, 2 hour, 3 hour.
Yeah.
Let me know. I'll drive up to.
And
I want a guided tour of the shore. Is it called the shore?
Shorefront.
Shorefront.
Yeah. So that's a yes, Renee.
We have
a lot of weakness here. There's
this is recorded, Renee, right?
You're on record.
All right. So thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you.
We'll swing back to you in a short.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yay.
All right, Brian.
Okay.
So moving on.
Well, we've got one more presenter actually. There's a little surprise here. Our founder, PechaKucha's own Mark Dytham, has prepared a presentation for us, as well as a message. I'll give a little tiny introduction about Mark, He and his partner Astrid Klein started an architecture practice here some 30 years ago after both attending the Royal College of Art, and they've done many projects in Japan, and they do projects around the world. I think they've in your neck of the woods, they've most recently done Central World in Bangkok. And I think there's some other ongoing projects there, and I won't steal any of his thunder, but it's unfortunate that he can't be with us tonight. He sends a hello to all of you. I know that some of you know him personally, and he was a little bit disappointed that he couldn't be here, but with good reason. So I'll just let Mark speak for himself. Mark, over to you.
Oh, looks like I'm just over Malaysia. That's right. I should be giving a PechaKucha presentation right now. Hi, B. Hi, Ken. Hi, everybody in Penang. I'm Mark Dytham, and along with Astrid Klein, who's in the In-Flight magazine, we're Klein Dytham Architecture over in Tokyo. We're the founders of PechaKucha Night, and we're really happy you're using the format again to showcase all the fantastic work and things that go on in your brilliant city. I'm on my way, as I say, to COP26 in Glasgow, where we'll be using the PechaKucha format there. We have a large initiative that's been running for several months, asking children how they think, and school kids how they think they should be getting on with it, and how policymakers and world leaders should be getting on with it in 20 slides, 20 seconds. And we're going to be there with a live PechaKucha stage, and many of the schools kids are coming to the event. So it's going to be really amazing. So look out for that online over the next few days. So without further ado, I just want to wish you a great night tonight. And I want to say a big hi to Ken, who I was a fan of for many years, and we're great friends, and it's brilliant that he's speaking tonight. And I also want to say a big thank you to the other presenters, and also to Bea and her team, who put on this fantastic series of PechaKucha Nights and designed the most amazing posters and graphics. I've tried really hard just here. But anyway, thank you so much for bringing so much PechaKucha passion and creativity to Penang. So hope to see you soon, either in Glasgow or in Penang or here in Tokyo, as we hope all the restrictions begin to be lifted. So I hope you had a great night tonight. And thanks, Brian. Switch over to my presentation, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
There you go.
So welcome to Tokyo, and this is one of our recent projects, Toggle Hotel.
Hiccups. We'll try that one more time. He's got a presentation here that he's prepared for you guys. So
I think the next one we have to do is 20 slides, 20 seconds in an airplane. I like that. I like that.
You know what? Let me. Oh, should I say this? Mark has a hilarious story that I absolutely love. He'll have to share the details with you of it before. But he was on a bus one time for a New Year's party. It was like one of these driving around the city, and he took a selfie with him in this bus, and he tweeted that he was on some private airplane with some hobnob people, and he convinced all his friends that he was flying around. It's quite funny. So he's keeping with that hilarity, with that great introduction. But let me get on to his presentation. So here we go. Mark, take it away.
So welcome to Tokyo, and this is one of our recent projects, Toggle Hotel. It's on a really incredible site, bounded on one side by the Chuosen Railway, one of the main railway lines across Tokyo, and an expressway and the Imperial Mall. So it's this really tight triangular site. But we wanted the building to be colorful and a billboard to itself in the monotonous gray of Tokyo. It's kind of funny because we chose yellow and gray last year, but in fact, they turned out to be the Pantone colors of the year, these exact colors, just by chance. Obviously, we're on top of the curve there. But we wanted this building, to, as I say, to be colorful in this quite a difficult site. So you can see that big dark expressway running past it. When you arrive, you go up to the 9th floor, and the reception area is a part of this light, breezy, airy cafe, which looks out across Tokyo. But color all the time in this hotel is the key. And it's a thing that we use colors free, so why don't we use it? So each of the floors has got a dual color, and this is the corridor here, and you can see it's split. One side it's light gray, one side it's blue, and each of the floors is a different color, and you definitely know you've got arrived on the wrong floor, as you'll see in a second. But color has been really, really important here. It's kind of like you go here for some color therapy. So there are the corridors. Yeah, you'll definitely know if you're on the wrong floor. It's been amazing. This hotel must be one of the most Instagrammed hotels in Tokyo, and it's been fascinating to see how people take photographs and how they share them during their time here. The rooms too are dual color, obviously yellow and blue here. I think there's 65 different color combinations within the hotel, and you can book them via color on the website, and it's really, really interesting, as I say, to see all of these colors and all the people using it on Instagram. It's very popular with cosplay and with anime people. They all have their own colors, and they use this hotel for parties and for anniversaries, things like that. Yeah. Each of the rooms has a loft bed in them, so you can go up and 3 people can stay in the hotel. Some are interconnecting, so 6 people can stay. And it's been really super successful, and it's been full since it opened on the 1st of April, which is amazing considering the COVID pandemic situation. Anyway, something different. We're in the countryside here. We're in Nasu, in Tochigi Prefecture, about an hour and 20 minutes from Tokyo by Shinkansen. And this is called Poku Clubhouse. It's a clubhouse between 2 hotels. We've built this connection. You can see the winding, meandering road and bridge that we've built, or pathway and bridge we've built. And when you find this building, it's like finding a fairy tale within the forest. Poko means stand up in Japanese, like pop up, poko. So it's an onomatopoeia. And inside each of the 3 cones, there's a different function. In this cone here, we have a restaurant, and it's an activity center for children. So they go and pick the vegetables and make pizzas, and they're cooked within the pizza oven. The parents can hang out on the right-hand side in where there's a lounge and fire, and the kids can hang out here. And there's this net that goes right up inside the cone and is really fantastic. So it's an agri hotel, or so you learn about farming and things like that here. And this is, this little fairy tale building that, as I say, connects the 2 hotels. It's been quite interesting. We've used all local materials and all local wood. And you can see the beams here, which working with tectonic structural engineers here, come up with this really nice idea of these, so the offcuts of wood, which make the webs of the beams. And they all rise to this center ring. You can see there how they connect. That's me there. It gives you some idea of scale. So these are quite large, and this is where the top light comes down. So the beams are then skinned with plywood to give it some rigidity, and then some insulation, and then some wood shingles on the outside. But again, really been a very successful project, and the hotel is always full, which is very nice. And here's another wooden project. This is for Cartier, and it's in Osaka. And it's just the facade we've designed. But I think it's a world first, and this is a facade made of Japanese cypress wood, or hinoki. Hinoki wood is used for baths in Japan, so it has a good water resistance. We've lacquered it. But the facade is made of 2,500 components. So these almost like these little small sake boxes, which are fixed onto an a recycled aluminium frame. But we were interested in the geometry of the Cartier jewelry and this traditional Japanese wood. And we were trying to combine these 2 things together, trying to combine the craftsmanship and use Japanese craftsmen. In fact, these are all made in Kyoto and made by a really fantastic woodworkers there, which I think you'll see in the next shot here. Yeah, so here they are. We're just checking each of the boxes. They were all handmade. The water goes through them, and this acts as a rain screen on the front of the project. But it's really interesting. It's right next to the Apple store, so it's the antithesis of that, where it's something warm and welcoming and made of natural materials as opposed to steel and glass. And I think we're trying to make an environmentally friendly facade here for Cartier too, And here you can see the wooden elements being fixed onto these recycled aluminium frames, which are cast. And of course, Osaka is very, very busy at night, and it was very important for the project to look, fantastic or just as powerful during the day or during the night as it was the day. And here, 2,500 boxes are lit with LED light inside, and it gives this really fantastic effect. So that's what we've been up to in Tokyo, and I'd be really interested to see when I land what you've been up to in Penang, and I really hope to see you soon in real life here in Tokyo or in Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Great job. Mark's I wonder how many of these presentations Mark has actually done. I would guess 1,000 potentially. Yeah.
I received his presentation like late after midnight.
I would say
guess
he's never prepared one by the deadline. None of those thousands have been made by the deadline. But that's why he's the master. He can pull them out of his ear really quickly. Yeah. But that was, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's always these are the projects that I get, even though I'm not an architect. These are the projects, some of the projects that I get to to sit adjacent to, which is really fun. And it's nice to be able to share them with you guys and everybody online, which, by the way, there are, where's my number? There was 137 of us on the Zoom, and then another 89 of us over on the YouTube. So it's amazing the turnout. So thank you all for coming. And with that, why don't we go ahead and thanks again, Mark, and thank you to all our presenters. Let's go ahead and officially close our presentation. We did it. Everybody got through their presentations. And let's go ahead and move on to our second section. We have a wonderful Q&A. And B, why don't you take us over the
right. Before our audience thinks this is the end of the film, you guys should stay on because there are more juicy things that we're going to talk about.
Now it's getting spicy. Stick around for the fire.
Yeah. Now we get all the personal stuff.
Yeah. So Mark, you want to share the next slide? That's our second set of things. We are going to have our guest moderator, Razvan. Let me just introduce a little bit about Razvan. I'm so glad he again took this challenge up and he said yes. And it makes things so easy, Brian, because I love the presenters this evening because I made a call and then, and in a short while, all the answers came back yes. So Razvan is currently the Festival Director of Singapore Archifest 2021. He's practicing architect with Hassel Architecture based in Singapore. He graduated from Princeton University, Chief Editor of Singapore Architect Magazine. Long list, Razvan. And you also teach unit leader at National University of Singapore, NUS. So everyone does a lot of things here on tonight's stage.
just like you, sounds like I have a lot of stressful hobbies other than the day job, which pretty much give life meaning.
Yeah, I guess that's how it seems like we click almost instantly. Same with right. So over to you, Razvan.
Thanks very much. Oh wow, that was
thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I am privileged and humbled to be moderating such a distinguished panel and be part of this incredibly cool event. And I realized in that photo, I look so cool and composed. It's probably the only time where I didn't have a big grin on my face. And I guess a secret I have left out is that I am actually half Malaysian. But before we get too excited, that's not by birth, but by marriage. My wife is 100% Malaysian, so shout out to everyone dialing in from PJ and the rest of Malaysia, indeed. But yeah, let's jump into it. And I think for our audience, please feel free to use the Q&A box to submit your questions. I'll be more than happy to pick some of them up and throw them into the conversation. But I guess since I could see a bit of a common thread in the different presentation, I was very curious to talk a little bit more. Maybe we can start with you, Serena and Ken, about regenerative design and talking about carbon neutrality and sustainability, which seems to be a word that is still in some circles seen as an add-on to architecture, which is a little bit annoying, frankly, because I feel that your work has been doing it intuitively for so very long. And I would love to hear a bit more about your the first couple of years in your professional life. What set you on this path? What were some of those interests that got you to do it intuitively? So over to you.
Well, Ken, you want to start? I think you're on mute. You need to unmute you.
Oh yeah, okay. No, Serena, you go ahead.
I guess straight out of school and when I got back working here, well, I worked in London for a bit, and when I got back here, first job I got was Telecom Malaysia. It's already almost 20 years now, and that tower itself is basically about 50% energy efficient, and it's a high-rise tower. So that's pretty amazing. When we started out on it, it was just a sort of idea of being a bit more holistic in the approach, and it was quite new. Energy efficiency wasn't discussed. We wanted to do a lot more, of course. We wanted to do rainwater, all the rest of the stuff. But heat island was also discussed. That's why we sort of had the sort of sky gardens going up. But so that was prevalent. Ecological didn't come till a bit later, even though my mother is really staunch. She has a tree going extinct for Malaysia in her garden right now. And she's cultivating it basically so that she can keep it up and keep the growth going. So ecological probably only in the last couple of years. And that's probably because, my mother's basically said, you're building buildings and that's actually destroying the planet. So it became quite an issue at the table whenever we were discussing.
Yeah, it's super insightful. And I think, a quote, and I have to attribute it to Josh Komarov here in Singapore. He's saying sometimes even green buildings, they're just like low tar cigarettes. We pretend that they're a little bit better, but in reality, the process of doing it still gets you to that outcome. But curious to hear your take, Ken, on your formative years and how you became such an early champion of eco-architecture and working with the environment.
Well, if I leave life again, if I were to live my professional life again, I would be an architect, a quantity surveyor or something like that. It's less stressful. You go through life by chance, there's a serendipity experience. And when I finished my portfolio exams at the AA, I was at the members room, and I can remember it was about 9 o'clock. I met with John Fraser, who said, I'm just starting a research group at Cambridge. Would you like to join us? So by perchance, I said, sure. And so within 6 months, I became a graduate student. And then I worked as a research worker in John's technical research unit on the Autonomous House. Autonomous House is a project mooted by Buckminster Fuller. Then after 6 months, or after 3 to 6 months, I said to John, this is not really me, because, your project is mostly engineering. And I think the real issues about ecological design. Now this goes back, this is 1970, 72. And so, John said, well, why don't you leave the research unit and do a PhD on ecological design planning? So that's what happened. So 1972 to 74, that's what I did. I wrote my doctorate and came back to Malaysia, and I worked for Serena's father for a year. And I wrote my doctorate at the same time. And so, but in writing my doctorate, I had to attend lessons on ecology. Of course, in Cambridge being the organization that it is, institution it is, called ecology and environmental biology. So I studied ecology at the Department of Environmental Biology. And I came back, my doctorate became my agenda. Now, when I started applying this back in starting, business in '76 with my current partner, Tunku Robert Hamza, who was at the AA with me. You just don't talk about green architecture or ecological architecture to anybody because, people would just, their eyes would glaze over and that's it. So I thought for a while and I felt that the starting point for ecological architecture, climatic architecture, because you have to start with a passive mode framework for as an armature for ecological considerations. And so from 1976, 77 to the 90s, we did everything ourselves as passive low energy design, as bioclimatic design. And we did all the engineering ourselves because we could not get engineering support. Until the 90s, then something happened, people just jumped up and said, oh, we have to do something about the environment. And that's from 90s onwards, late 90s, we started, had better engineering support. But as you say, most people, ecological design is an add-on. But it's not an add-on. You have to start from scratch. The other day I was in Amsterdam, I was, developers, in the waterfront with developer. He pointed out two buildings done by Zaha, on the opposite side of the pier. And he said, those are super green buildings. I said, really? And I said, these are done by Zaha. And I said, well, Zaha's been doing these type of buildings. And she's a wonderful designer for years. And they don't look green. They look, just like wonderful Zaha buildings. But what happens now, what is happening now is that every architect would just get an engineer who's, conversant with accreditation systems, whether it's LEED, Green Mark, or BREEAM, and just to fine tuning the engineering systems to make them into green architecture. But green architecture is not just that, it's the whole series of things that to go through. So if you read my latest book, my contention is that architecture must be like nature. It's not nature-based, it must be part of nature. And so architecture should be what I call constructed ecosystems. And so in that sense, it must emulate, replicate, and augment the built systems with the attributes and properties of ecosystems. And so that's my current research has been consuming me, and it's been extremely difficult because it's just me in my office and a few colleagues all over the world. And I've given up on my generation of architects because few, if any, of the architects are brought up ecology. And if you study ecology, it changes the whole view of the world. That when you look out in the garden, you don't see just grass or trees. You think of the whole processes that take place, that are invisible to the human eye, that nature does for us, what we call ecosystem services. But if you're not trained in ecology, then you wouldn't have, I'll finish in a minute. If you're not trained in ecology, you wouldn't understand this. But my whole generation of architects are not brought up this way. So I hope it's the next generation of architects will be better trained, but it's too late for my generation.
I think they see it in a different light. I mean, and I think they're seeing it in terms of, performance, landscape, or blue-green networks or nature. I think there is quite a bit that is absorbing it, probably not in such specific science of the biology, but I think they are seeing that we do require that as part of the synergy and symbiotic relationship. Not all of us can be the ecologists and biologists, but certainly an appreciation and getting closer to this. I think that this next generation feels that for sure.
Most definitely. And I guess being part of the current generation, but also teaching the next generation, I can see exactly what you were mentioning about ecosystem, not necessarily understanding all the fine nuances of ecology, but understanding how systems, ecosystem thinking and relationships between sort of cause effect and how we work as architects matters a whole lot. But I would like to maybe take these notions and then pivot a little bit to bring Renee into the fold, because whilst I have never necessarily heard Renee speak about sustainability as a core driver of his work, but more about notion of delight, composition, proportion, utilitas, firmitas, venustas. I personally cannot help but read all your projects, Renee, as perfectly integrated with their environment and with the climate. So do you think, and I'm going to put something out there for you to react to, do you think that somehow the classical values of rigor and order in architecture somehow are intuitively addressing sustainability?
That's a very good question, Rosman. I've been thinking about this for some time too. I think the short answer is yes. I think people going as far back as Vitruvius, since you brought that up, I think they would have to a large extent thought about issues like this. And for our own work, we like to think that there is a certain amount of common sense that goes into the making of architecture and the environment. The projects that we do are usually small scale, so we have not had opportunities at testing these ideas at a much in larger portions. But in the things that we do, I think proportions, not just proportions as it relates to the human body, but in terms of sun shading and size and scale, I think it is in many ways, if you will, sustaining unto itself. But we have also been thinking about how we can design for the future. And I've also thought about, for architecture to be truly sustaining, it has got to go beyond just our common notions of sustainability. And when I think about that, I often think that in order to do that, architecture needs to be self-sustaining. It needs to reinvent itself. It needs to be able to rediscover itself. So just beyond issues of climate and materials, I think it's also an issue of the mental state. We like to think that our architecture can surprise, can be delightful, can be rediscovered, can be interesting, can be counterintuitive, so that the work that we do, that we try to do, can be interesting within 5 years, 15 years, 25 years, something that we can keep rediscovering, and the architecture would not be just banal and well, the word that we commonly use in the office, boring. That's why we have tried to think not like architects, and I often tell people in the office, well, it's all good and nice, but the problem is it looks like it was designed by an architect. So we like to go, I think, beyond just the issues of sustainability that we have been talking about these days in terms of climate and materials. We think it's something that has to do with the mind as well. That's why I tell the office, I think in order for us to do interesting things, we need a little bit of a different sort of thinking, a different sort of approach. And I think one of the things to do actively is just to stop thinking like architects.
Whenever you have that slide with the gamblers, I just cannot take out the Chow Yun Fat with the sleek kind of hair, the god of gamblers, almost like the next blueprint for what the architect should be, and almost like working with opportunities that get presented. Yeah. And I think just to spice up a little bit the conversation, I wanted to get a little bit more personal with some of the questions and just hear about you personally, all three of you, on a personal level. When do you work best, mornings or evenings? And feel free to answer in as few words as you're comfortable doing. Shall we start? Shall we go in the same order that you presented? Maybe Serena, Ken, Renee, just to.
Very early mornings or very late nights. I think during the day, you're distracted by other things. You're distracted by the reality, and I think that sometimes first thing in the morning when you wake up, or you wake up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock because you can't sleep because of something. It's then or late at night that you sort of have that sort of space, I think, and that quietness allows you to be able to think or imagine. I think during the day you get into this discussion and you get into all sorts of discussions, and it's all about trying to work it out. But the bit of sort of ideas or something like that is really at this late kind of periods, I think.
How about you, Ken?
Architects don't sleep, yeah, Serena.
Well, actually, that's true. I don't sleep at all.
How many hours, Ken? Do you mind telling us?
Well, to be frank with you,
and he still looks 17.
have a pure heart, and clean living,
How do you do it, Ken? Because you do so many things, I always wonder, does he sleep,
Well, I don't fool around anymore.
Oh, that's
They do get a few additional hours here and there.
My twin brother is the one who gives me a bad name, actually. But I just heard what Renee is talking about, boring. Renee must not, boring is a terrible description because you cannot defend yourself. People say you're boring, then you can say, oh, well, is this interesting? They said, no. Is this interesting? No. You can never defend yourself if somebody says you're boring. So, that's a dangerous word to use. Now, going back to architecture, I've been working green architecture since, 1971. But it is not the only thing that I do, because I think a work of architecture must do 5 things. Well, first of all, it must be functional. It doesn't work, it's a useless piece of hardware. So the first criteria for me is functionality. The second, it must meet criteria. It must be within cost, within time, must meet authority requirements. So it must meet criteria. The third must be immensely beautiful, because that's why we're architects, we're artists and craftsmen. And thirdly, fourthly, it must be green, which is one of the things that I do. But after a while, doing green buildings is not objective anymore. It is something you do, pardon the pun, you do it as second nature. Then finally, the most important thing about architecture, and that's the most important thing about architecture, is to make people happy. Now, if you're able to make people happy, your whole raison d'etre, the whole reason why you're an architect is fulfilled. The other day I did a house for somebody, and the family, the father, husband, wife said to me, we're immensely happy in this house. We think we're living in paradise. That really made me feel terrific. And so that's the first thing on my mind when I start designing anything. How do we make the users, how to make the visitors, how to make people happy? And it doesn't cost an awful lot of dosh to make people happy. You just, it can be something as, as simple as using colors or using, something metaphysical. Yeah. But if you're able to make people happy, that is the real purpose of architecture. And that's what we give, it's not to design, not to create, forms, but it's bring joy and to bring pleasure to people. That is the function.
Well said.
That's inspiring, very inspiring.
Absolutely, yes.
We've got a comment.
Renee, what about you? Brian, I thought we lost you. Are you still with us?
No, I'm here. My family just came home. They're making a bunch of noise. They stepped out, but now they're back. But but there's the comments in the chat are highlight of my weekend, inspiring. So I think you guys are making an impact on our weekend here. So thank you so much.
Right. How many hours do you sleep? You are doing a lot of things as well. I know PechaKucha is not your only thing. You have many day jobs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very inspired by all of your words and all your what's the word, all the ability to do lots of different things, the painting and to have lots of other interests outside of your work. And I think that's one of the, as I mentioned before, I'm sort of architecture adjacent, and I see people pouring so much passion into their architecture that they're exhausted to do other projects. And I think, like Serena, what you said about that early morning or that early night, that daytime that you're working things out, it's so important to like, such an important time to like, get inspiration from other places. And when I don't have to work things out because I'm not an architect, I can go take pictures or make music or write or, and those are the things that I genuinely think keep me from going to the doctor's office and allow me to sleep for 30 seconds and then be energized again. I don't know what it is, but I definitely think having a holistic view of your creative passions it helps a lot, I think.
Okay, great. I think we are reaching end of our session soon. So I'm just going to read one question, Razvan, from our audience.
Go for it.
This question is for Renee. You have a fan here in Penang, Renee. Apparently, they know you have some current projects running ongoing in Penang. I didn't even know that. Is that right? Do you want to tell us a little bit on what's your current project in Penang?
Yeah.
Someone seems to know.
Right. We after doing Shorefront, we were asked to do a rather interesting project, a conservation type project on McAllister Road. It was interesting but difficult because it was a conservation house that had already been stripped all of its details through the years. It's been renovated upon and upon a few times. And the clients comes to us now to ask us to rebuild the thing following some surviving photographs of it. So it's in short, it's a conservation house it's going to be offices for a company. It's an interesting job, and unfortunately, we have not been able to see it for some time because of this non-traveling routine. Yeah, but it's something that we are looking forward to. Yeah, it has got to do with some historical issues, preservation of values, so on and so forth, and we are very happy to be doing it. Yeah.
Well, let us know when you're coming back to Penang.
Yes, we will. Yes.
Okay, back to you, Razvan. I'm sure you have a few more hot
things that I'm curious about. Well, I guess, it sounds like we obviously what we do is out of a lot of passion, and passion comes, I think, with a lot of other hobbies. So let's talk a little bit about books or movies. Is there a book that you are, or books that you are currently reading? What's on your nightstand? Maybe we'll start with you, Renee. What are you currently reading?
Anything except architecture. I've been reading a lot on football books. I've always joked around and said that if I weren't an architect, I'd be a football historian. And it sounds like a joke, but it's not actually a joke, because I'm truly interested in it. I watch a lot of soccer. But it has actually brought some ideas into my thinking about architecture as well. I read a lot of books on total football, for instance, and that's how we try to organize the office, where every member of the office plays all sorts of positions, does all sorts of things. And it has inspired my thinking about how we could organize what we do in our daily routines. So that's important.
That's
anything
fascinating.
about architecture.
Cool. How about you, Serena?
Oh, I think I'm going to be inspired by Renee, by his other hobbies. I don't know. I don't seem to have had time to do this sort of hobbies. I as I was just saying to Ken, at this juncture and this time, and I guess quite a few people are feeling the same through this pandemic. I'm interested to read on other people's being able to scale up and scale up their business. So I'm interested in this book called Super Scaling. So that idea that, we can springboard from, being this small to slightly bigger and grow. But my other hobby, I guess, is I'm actually president of the Body Talk Association of Malaysia. I don't know if you all know what Body Talk, Body Intuitive is. It's actually letting your body respond and tell you, it's healing yourself through your body, through body intuitive, body talking. And it's, I think because it's a holistic kind of thing, it's actually very intuitive. It probably ties back to how I think about architecture in a much more intuitive way. I like what Ken was saying just now. I think first and foremost is that we'd like to create something that's beautiful. And I guess we've seen a lot of the stuff that we've done is quite form centric, but the form has obviously a lot more content. So it's this idea of approaching on a much more holistic, and body talk and body intuitive is that approach of being in tune with yourself. So that's one of my hobbies.
It's fascinating to hear. And how about you, Ken? What is the book or books you are currently reading?
Oh, well, I have flavor of the year. You know, a few years back, I would pick a series of topics and I try and read as many books on that topic as possible. A few years back, I was extremely interested in a writer called Jack Kerouac. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
The most popular book is called On the Road, and you know, Dharma Bums, you know, and anyway, I've read a lot of Jack Kerouac, and from there I read Silver Plaid. Then there was a period where I was interested in management books, so I just read, you know, maybe a dozen management. You know, don't forget that I did research for 3.5 years, and when you do research, you become a speed reader. You can read books, you know, very quickly, and you know which sections to read. So you know, so I used to read books on management like Tom Peters and Kenneth Blanchard, you know, and Michael Porter, people like that, you know, cover everything and they give amazing tips on, you know, you can always pick up something that will help improve your business. And so I went through a period of that, and I went through a period of reading books on design. Then I went through a whole year reading books on innovation. And now, you know, of course, as a regular topic, I read a lot of books on green design. And so, and that's what I do all the time. I'm a compulsive reader. Whenever I have a book in front of me, I'll just read it as fast as I can, pick it up. And then sometimes I read the book 2-3 times, you know, if I can pick up the ideas out of it. But that's a certain technique in speed reading and in reading books. So, you know, it's very useful. And that's what I do all the time. But I would recommend to read On the Road, you know, by Jack Kerouac, because it talks about a free life, a life which is not inhibited by rules and regulations. And he was around the same time as Ginsberg and people like that. So, you know, during the late 50s. And it's a book about, you know, on a motorbike going across the USA. He's half Canadian, I think, Jack Kerouac. It's an amazing, you know, book. And so, you know, that's some of my.
Can I interject here? Did you read that book? As you said, you read books sometimes multiple times. Did you read that book as a young man as well also?
Well, no, I read books after I came back to Malaysia. And somebody asked me, what do I do now? I said, you know, my life is centered around 4 R's. R, you know, the R.
Yeah.
First, is reading, which is I'm a conscious reader. And second is writing, W-R-I-T-I-N-G, which is what I do. I've written about 12 books. And the other one's called arithmetic, which is trying to make some money. And the last one's the most important one.
That's a good one.
The last R is the most important one. It's architecture.
But I think a lot of students will appreciate this, Ken. There's about 40% of our audience this evening are all architectural students. Young architects want to be,
That's
you know, I think we're already coming to almost an end our session, Razwan. Any last questions from you? You've been such a great moderator coming up with all these good questions.
Seriously.
Look, I mean, I think I will no longer abuse these good people any longer. I think they've been absolutely outstanding, and not only at answering the questions, but just contributing with so much insight, kindness. And we have a question from Renee or a commentary or something.
I've got a question for Razvan. I know Razvan.
Oh, Lordy.
Razvan has been a great moderator, and he has done this a lot of
Didn't
times.
sign up for this.
Shoot
away.
Yeah, he is like a smooth professional moderator.
Is there any difference you find between interviewing and talking to architects from Malaysia as compared to in Singapore?
I have to. No, it's definitely not a difficult question, because I think in a
Renee is
sense
saying this as a Malaysian in Singapore. Is that's so he's actually trapped you there.
He's got me in a rhetorical headlock. But I personally think that it's not a matter of, let's say, where you practice, but I think it's a matter of what you believe in. So I've had the good fortune over the last month of ArchiFest, obviously, to have conversations with people from ranging from Melbourne to Boston, from Shanghai to Cape Verde, for instance, right? So I think the one thread that I find in common in the most delightful and surprising conversations is when people are authentic, genuine, and they're generous with how they prefer to open up. And I think if I did pick up something, is that it is quite easy to spot, to hear when people have a certain sort of PR agenda that they come to the table with, and regardless of how you're trying to get that conversation off the ground, they have a very clear line, which was very rarely the case in my experience over the past years doing this, and definitely not the case tonight. So I would say not a big difference. I mean, we are all doing architecture as a profession, but I think we are more interesting than just being architects. And my hope for the students or younger architects attending is that they're doing architecture as a way to promote or be in service of something. They would be interested in something other than architecture, and architecture is a vehicle for that. And architecture for architecture's sake is a non-starter. And that's the conversations that I've enjoyed the most. And obviously, you're all fascinating people on this call, and you're more than just what you do for a living. So yeah, thanks for. That was a good. When I started your question, I'm like, he's gonna ask the toughest thing ever. But you actually gave me a chance to reflect on my feet a little bit, which I'm
well said.
Yeah.
I think that's a very cleverly weaved along, Razvan. So we're just going to go one round with everyone, because I think we are usually known for short and sweet. So we're coming to the end of the show, and I just want our students and our young architects here, all here to hear some form of inspiration of the evening. Serena, what would you tell our architects, our future architects, our next Serena, our next Renee, our next Ken? What is your takeaway? 1-2 liner.
Yeah, you shouldn't have started with me. I think I wanted to ask the two statesmen in the room in terms of the architecture here is, I think that you always have to keep yourself fairly motivated and to see beyond where you are just at this very, very moment. Because it's been very challenging. I don't know about the rest, but I've found it's been quite challenging this past 2 years. And ever looking for inspiration that's outside the architecture, basically, that actually moves you forward. So I think I wanted to hear, for those who are a little bit more experienced and how they've actually kept going, how do you continue to inspire yourself beyond the box that keeps trying to form you, keeps trying to come and close in on you, from dealing with clients, not so much clients, I would say. Individuals are not so bad, but developers try to constrain and define you, and also don't give the opportunity, but also don't give the. I think we're moving into an era that developers don't have as much trust in what you do, or respect for what you do, in the sense. And I think that's the part we have to look beyond that for us to keep on being inspired.
I think that's great.
That's it.
But I think what Serena said, which is her hobby, I think that is the secret actually.
The
You know,
hobby?
yeah, not hobby, or whatever you do, the behavioral thing. You know, as an architect, by the time you reach about 8, 9 o'clock, you've had all the disasters and terrible news and all the things you have to do during the day. You're totally exhausted and you're pissed off.
I can imagine. I can agree to that.
Yeah, if you go to bed and you meditate, and now to me the secret is meditation, because no matter how bad a day I had the day before, I wake up in the morning and I said I want to set the world on fire again. So meditation is the secret of re-energizing yourself and wanting to do the things you want to do in the world the first thing in the day. That is the secret. But I was going to tell, if you have a lot of students there, I would tell them one single thing. Are you sure you want to be an architect?
Oh, don't say that.
My kids know architecture. I'm a second generation. My father's an architect. I'm an architect. My kids don't do architecture.
No, architecture.
Really?
Yeah, that's true. Now, I'll tell you why it is, if you want to do architecture, you really must have the passion for it. Otherwise, it's a very stressful profession. And I tell people it's stressful for 5 reasons. First of all, it's cash flow driven. That means you have to do the work first, you go get the money. And sometimes you don't even get the money. Whereas if you run a restaurant, you finish the food, you pay before you leave. So it's very cash flow driven. Secondly, we're delivery intensive. Every day, if you run a reasonable office, you have half a dozen to even more things you have to deliver on that day. Otherwise, somebody will get really pissed off with you. So it's delivery intensive, cash flow driven, delivery. Third is that you're doing multiple business functions. Now, if you're in the car business, the person who manufactures the car doesn't do the marketing, doesn't do the management, doesn't do the sales. But you as an architect, you have to do everything. You have to do the production, you have to do the sales, you have to do the marketing, and you do everything yourself. So you have multiple business functions. And finally, as an architect, you're dealing with people. You have all sorts of problems with people outside, people inside, And so, it's a people business. If you don't handle that, delicately, things can go frightfully wrong. And so these are 4 reasons why you should not be an architect. Now, if you want to,
I have to clap to that.
If you
Brutally honest.
If you want to be an architect, you must be prepared to face all this, as Hamlet says, the trials and tribulations of the sea of troubles. Otherwise, it's much easier, to be something else. So if you do architecture, have the passion for it. Otherwise,
and have a good hobby, as you just said.
Have a good, meditation, deep meditation, revise you.
Renee's got something to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the passion part. I think it's true. I keep telling myself in the office, the secret is be passionate about architecture, but do not be fanatical about it. I think we should step back.
When to shut off.
have some fun and don't take ourselves so seriously. That's why I think as my partner, who's actually Mr. Quack, TK Quack, who's not here, but probably listening in, he had one simple reminder for the office: have fun. Yeah, and I think it should be fun driven for us to sustain all the tribulations that Ken had just mentioned.
Add one more, Ken, fun driven.
Learn to play. Absolutely, agree with that.
It might be a bit too young to make sort of these definitive reflections, but can I add one to the pot?
Yep.
A great piece of advice I got after I got licensed in Singapore, which, as you probably have heard, is quite a steep process. It felt a little bit like waterboarding, but at the end of it, it felt very rewarding to be a licensed architect. And I think we all pressure ourselves with so many different, and the discipline is like the universe, expanding at faster speeds. And the great piece of advice I got is you don't have to be all the parts of an architect. And you don't have to be all those parts to the best ability of what those parts could be. So, acknowledging and finding where your strength and role is in the world of architecture, I think that is also being perhaps a great driver for people who have a certain passion in a part of architecture, not all of it, because architecture is changing like every profession. So I would hope that, the younger generation, then sort of me, almost like close to my 40s, is that they'll be finding their part in the larger ecosystem of what architecture is becoming, which is a much broader profession than it has been. So you don't have to be all the parts of an architect all the time. You can find that sweet spot that will keep you waking up every day with that smile on your face, and a hobby, of course. Nicely said.
Brian, I can see that, we are all doing a lot of heavy architecture talk there, and are you absorbing it all?
I am, and I have something to add to the pot. And it was a word that I really like. It was a word that I really liked, and that's generosity. And I think all of you have been incredibly generous with your knowledge and your time tonight. I think all of our audience feels the same. And the other one that I want to express is gratitude. Ken, you said, meditation is what helps you sort of reset at the end of the day. I always am mindful to be grateful for things. And I find that if I'm grateful, I can't be pissed off anymore. I can't be grateful and pissed off at the same time. So I have a ton of gratitude for you guys tonight. I have a ton of gratitude for B for putting this together. I have a ton of gratitude just for being architecture adjacent, as I've said a few times. Razvan, this was an amazing session. Thank you so much for guiding us through it. And yeah, B, this was an incredible night. Good job again. Home run. Should we call it a session?
I just want to keep applauding for a while. That was amazing, guys.
Well, before you guys sign off, B, what do you want? What do you want? What should we do next?
We should do that, PechaKucha signature thing, right?
Okay.
Just like in pre-COVID, we do this post like, PechaKucha, and then that's where you see.
Are we doing baby
Facebook.
hearts?
Yeah.
You can do it as you like.
Yeah.
As you like. We'll do two.
Right.
We'll do 2 or 3 versions. Guys, give me your best smile. You guys at home and all of us who are still on the call, thank you so much for sticking around. Cheer us on while we make a nice photo here. You guys are in our thoughts. Here we go. Best smile, everyone. In 3, 2, 1. Look at your cameras. One more. 3, 2, 1. PechaKucha. Nice. Okay, we did it. Oh my gosh,
this was great.
We did it.
I don't want to go off. I want to stay on the call. This was so cool. I don't want it to end.
I think Razvan can go on and on. Thank you so much, everyone.
You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Have a good
Renee.
night.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Renee.
have a great meeting, everyone. We must catch up at some point, either side of the border. Yeah.
When your border opens, we'll come down and see you.
Absolutely.
I'll host a gathering in Penang, okay? Make sure you guys come.
We have to come up for Laksa. That's a must.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Brian, for being
you, everyone.
a great host.
Bye, guys. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. That was so much fun.
Yeah, stay well.
All right, be well, everybody. Thank you to all our audience too. Any final words?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Volume 14 is coming to an end. We'll see you soon. Volume 15. Thank you for your support. We'll keep going as long as we can. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Serena. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Razvan. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mark. So have a good evening, guys. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Devastating Tokyo in February 2003. As an event for young designers to network and show their work in public, it has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format. 20 images, each for 20 seconds. Moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more than from gatherings. Rendezvous for creatives or the city.
Thanks, Razvan. That was great.
That was so much fun.
I wish we had longer time.
I know. Too short. My only complaint.
Yeah. Let's do something fun again together.
Can we take a photo, like 3 of us? Let me put you guys on the gallery.
PechaKucha, eh, 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 20 by 20. PechaKucha, eh, 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 20 by 20. PechaKucha, eh, 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 20 by 20. PechaKucha, eh, 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 eh.
Have to get something through the system.
Événement, mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 minutes.
Take care. Stay in touch. Have a good one.
Thanks, Razvan. Thank you, everyone.
PechaKucha is een avond vol verrassingen.
Over and out.
Waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, PechaKucha is Lak Lak Let's Make in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for the sound of talking. This is PechaKucha. Thank you, Astrid Dema, for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always song in your place, eating and drinking space. Barresto gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Serena, relax way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha. All over the world, a real network. We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha. With wonderful stories at the Pecha Nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
PechaKucha ist für uns alle eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.